In this video I'm going to be talking about 1.7, which is dealing with transformations of graphs. And this is just the way that graphs kind of move around. It can be any parent graph. This could be the absolute value. I just happen to pick our quadratic parent function. Doesn't matter though. It could be absolute value, it could be greatest integer, anything at all. With this, there's some basic things that we do. We can either shrink or stretch, reflect, or move. This is Mrs. Backwards. Okay, Mrs. Backwards, I got this from Miss Sutterth when I was in pre-cal with her, and it has worked wonders for me. S stands for stretching or shrinking. R is our reflection, whether it be over the x-axis or the y-axis. M is moving, left, right, up, down, doesn't matter. Okay, stretching and shrinking is going to be in the x direction or the y direction. It's only going to be one or the other at a time. We can do both in a problem, but it's only going to do one thing at a time. So with the inside, these two things are kind of in the inside with the x, and the x is a weirdo. I don't know why I wrote wife, but you'll be okay. You'll understand. With the x. Whenever we see something with the x, like if we have plus 7, we're going to actually move to the left 7. So we kind of actually do the opposite thing. So I'm going to say when I'm with the x, I'm going to do the opposite. The other ones that we have are on the outside, the a and the h. These are on the outside of the parentheses, so they are not with the x, but we can say that these things are kind of with the y. And we're going to do the exact same as what we see. So we know, sames, whatever, do sames. We know if we have plus 3, then we're going to cross our y-axis at 3. That's just where we have our y-intercept. If we're multiplying by 2, if there was a 2 here, then we're going to multiply our y values by 2. So I'm going to look at a few examples, and we're just going to try to see where these things fit together. It's asking us to graph negative square root of x plus 9. What I always do first off to the side is I write out my Mrs. Backwards. Just kind of helps me clarify what I need to do and when I need to do it. So you absolutely have to do them in order. You have to stretch or shrink first, then you have to reflect, and then last we move. So just looking at my equation, stretching or shrinking only happens when we are multiplying something. So I don't have anything multiplying on the outside except for kind of a 1, and there's a 1x there. So 1 won't change the way that we multiply anything. So in this case, there is no stretching or shrinking. So I don't have any of that. For reflections, that's where our negative signs come in. Since I have a negative on the outside, I have a negative with the y. Well, if I have a negative y, that's like if I had something over here and I make it a negative y. Oops, no, don't do that. I'm lying. If I make it a negative y, it actually goes down here, doesn't it? So if it becomes a negative y, it actually flipped over the x-axis. So we have a reflection over the x-axis. The move is inside, we have plus 9, but don't forget on the inside with our x's, it's kind of the opposite. So we're going to move to the left 9. Okay, so now when I want to graph, I usually start out with my parent function, and I kind of work from there. So there's our parent of the square root, minus that part, there's that part. Okay, and I'm just going to do these things one thing at a time. So if we're going to reflect over the x-axis, this point up here will now be down here. 4, 2 will be for negative 2. And just after the reflection, my graph will look something like that. Well, now that I've done that, I'm going to move on to my last step, which is just left 9. So I'm going to move every single point left 9. So I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now my point at 0, 0 will be at negative 9, 0. 1, negative 1 will be at 8, negative 1. And over 4 down 2, so over 4 down 2. So there is my new graph. And that would be all you need to put. Just make sure if you're using the same color, you show me that this is our final or something like that. Okay, if you're using different colors like this, then I can tell hopefully that your final is the blue one. In this example, we're doing a lot of different things. So again, I always write this out off to the side, my Mrs. Backwards, to kind of clarify and help me make sure that I'm doing things in the right order. Any stretching or shrinking, well, I have multiplication on the outside. Multiplication on the outside is the same, so I'm going to stretch my y's by 2, by a factor of 2. And on the inside, I'm multiplying my x by 3. Now don't forget, that x is the opposite. We want to do the opposite when we're x. So like this -1, we're actually going to move it to the right one. Now this 3x, the opposite of multiplication is division, so I'm going to actually multiply my x's by 1/3. So that's like I'm dividing by 3. Okay, so there's my stretching or shrinking. I've taken care of these two things. With reflection, we look at the negative signs, negative multiplications. Well, I have a negative on the outside with the y, so again I'm going to have it over the x-axis. And now for moving, on the inside, so I'm going to move it to the right one, and I'm going to move it up 2. The 2 is on the outside, it's positive. With the y, I do the same. Our parent function, the absolute value, something like this. I have 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6. Right, and then negative 1, 1, negative 2, 2, negative 3, 3, negative 4, 4, and so on. So first, I have to go in order. Have to go in order. So I'll multiply the y's by 2. So when I multiply this by 2, it'll jump up here. This is like the point 1, 1, so now it becomes 1, 2. 2, 2 becomes 2, 4. And that's just after my multiplying the y's by 2. 0 will still stay at 0 because 0 times 2 is 2. So when I multiply the x's by 1/3, this thing's going to come in even more. So this point at 1, 2 will move to 1/3 2. 2, 4 will move to 2/3 4. And so on. It will kind of reflect it on the other side. So just after the multiplication, I have this really skinny absolute value function. Okay, I've done that. Now I have to reflect it over the x-axis. So 1/3 2 will jump down to 1/3 -2. Likewise on the other side. And then my 4's will be down here. So I have this really skinny graph going the other way. Right, just reflect it, reflect it over the x-axis. That's really hard to draw, sorry. So now that I've done my reflection, I'm just going to move it right 2, up 1, or right 1, up 2, rather. Right 1, up 2. So take my point at 0, 0, I'm going to go right 1, up 2. Hey, there's a blue dot already, cool. Okay, I'm going to take this point, right 1, up 2. So now it hits right there, he hits there. I have the really skinny absolute graph value, absolute value graph going all the way down. And this one in the blue would be my final. You're pretty much going to be doing the same sort of thing with all your graphing stuff. You're going to start from the parent, and then you're going to follow the order. You're stretching, you're reflecting, and you're moving. Just make sure you do it right in order. 1, 2, 3. Stretch, shrink first, reflect, and then move whatever needs to be moved. So with this case, I'm not going to worry about graphing it to kind of save you guys some time. As far as the stretching or shrinking goes, I am multiplying by 2 on the outside. 2 is on the outside, so outside is with the y's, so I'm going to multiply my y's by a factor, it's not 2, that's an apostrophe. Y's by a factor of 2. For reflections, I look for negatives. Well, I have a negative here, and I have a negative on the inside with the x. So this negative on the outside makes it a negative y, which is over the x-axis. Also on the inside, I have a negative x. Well, if I had a positive x and I made it negative, then I reflected over the y-axis. So negative x on the inside, I'm going to reflect it over the y-axis. Moving on the inside, I have a negative 1 inside with x, so do the opposite. So I'm going to move to the right one. And outside, I have minus 4. Do the same on the outside, so it's with the y, so move it down 4. And that would be the moving. Hopefully this helped you guys with transformations. Just keep practicing. It takes a lot of time to get this. I know this is difficult stuff. It's probably the first time that you have to do something like this. Just please, 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 remember to write this every time. I know it gets tedious and annoying, but this is the most useful thing that you can do in transformations, is write out your stretching, reflecting, moving. Very, very useful stuff. Okay, hopefully that helped. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in class.